God, thank you for the sunshine and the blue skies. Thank you for the beauty of all of the plants that are blooming, the color, the green, evidence of your presence in creation. And thank you also for buildings and air conditioning. Thank you for your presence in the midst of us, in the spaces between us, and in all of us. I pray now that you speak through me or in spite of me, that the words of my mouth, the meditations of our hearts will be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. We are continuing with our Womanist Lectionary, and so the text this morning is from Matthew chapter 15, and it's verses 21 through 28. You can read along in your bulletins, or just listen, or pull out your physical Bibles, or whatever variation of that. Jesus left the place where he had been teaching and went away to the regions of Tyre and Sidon. Just then, a Canaanite woman from the area came out and shouted, "Have mercy on me, sir, son of David. My daughter is badly demon-possessed." But Jesus did not answer her a word. Then his disciples came and implored him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." And now Jesus answered, "I was not sent to any except the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before Jesus, saying, "Rabbi, help me." Then Jesus said, "It's not good to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she said, "Yes, Rabbi, yet the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their Lord's table." Then Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed from that moment. The word of the Lord. So just right on the outset, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys that this passage holds a lot of weight for me. I've gotten in a whole lot of trouble in the past preaching on this text.
It's very troubling at face value.
Yep. But much like the Canaanite woman, I am stubborn and persistent. And when it comes to injustice, breaking boundaries is just part of the job. So I invite you on this journey with me into a truly troubling text. But there's also a richness in it if we're open to see it as such. Because it is a troubling text. And I think often, that commentators, preachers will try to downplay it. Maybe they'll talk about how, well, the Greek term for dog is like a puppy or an endearing house pet, or that like the Jews of the time treated their pets like families, so that makes it okay to be called a dog. And then there are other people who are like, he didn't really mean that, he's just trying to test her faith. Or he didn't really mean that, he wanted to teach his disciples something in this interaction. Surely Jesus couldn't have actually said those words to another person. And all of those are a way to interpret it, 100%. I just don't agree with it. So that's what we're going to dive into with this text. But in order to do that, we first have to get context. Y'all know that I'm gonna go there with it. But in this particular text, there's 2 points that I want to highlight, and they're going to be important for what this passage has to say to us today. And the first one is, I'm going to jump all the way back to Matthew 1. And in Matthew 1, we get introduction to Jesus by way of his genealogy. And a rare thing happens in this genealogy in Matthew, and that is that there are women named in Jesus' genealogy. There are the men, of course, there are the patriarchs, there are the fathers of Jesus, but there are also 4 women. 4 women are named in Jesus' genealogy, and this is rare. That's not that it never happens, but it does. It should pique our interest that women are named here. And those women are Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Bathsheba, though Bathsheba is the wife of Uriah in the text. She's actually not named. 4. And 4 of those women, 3 of them are foreigners. Tamar comes from outside of the people of Israel. Rahab comes outside of the people of Israel. And Ruth comes outside of the people of Israel. They are considered Gentiles, or what the first century, the people in Matthew's, when Matthew's reading this text in the first and second century, they're reading it knowing that these are Gentiles, a part of Jesus' lineage, foreigners. And this is going to be important as we get into the text. The second thing that I want to highlight about the context is right before this happens, Jesus has had an interaction with some insiders. First, in chapter 15, starting in verse 1, we have Pharisees coming from Jerusalem to ask Jesus questions. But it's not out of a sense of curiosity. They're asking Jesus from a place of, we're the clean ones, and we're the ones who are practicing correctly what it means to be a good Jew. You, Jesus, are not, so we're going to ask questions of you out of concern for your holiness and for your cleanliness. So they ask Jesus, why are your disciples not washing their hands before they eat food? And listen, it's a valid question. We all need to be washing our hands before we're eating food. I understand that. But there's another level of cleanliness that they're asking about. It's all about purity. It's all about what's clean and what's unclean. And the Pharisees are coming to Jesus with the assumption that we're the clean ones and we need to police what you and your followers are doing. Not questions from trying to understand, questions for criticism and judgment purposes. There's no curiosity behind it. And when Jesus says, well, it's not actually what goes into the mouth that matters so much as what comes out of your mouth that determines whether or not you're clean or pure. What's in your hearts, what comes out of your mouth, the words that you speak. And the Pharisees reject this take from Jesus, and then they start plotting, right? We're slowly moving into the passion of Jesus. This is like the linchpin turn for the Pharisees in this interaction. So they leave, and then we have another interaction that happens between Jesus and his disciples. He gathers his disciples after this interaction with the Pharisees and clarifies further, because the disciples are still curious about what is this? What did you make it more clear to us what you just said to the Pharisees? And Jesus just basically restates it. It's not what goes into the body that makes us clean or unclean. It's what comes out of our mouths that reveals our hearts. But the disciples still seem a bit confused, and then they depart from the place, and that's where the story picks up, right? They left the place where they had been. They leave this interaction, and they go into, again, outsider territory, foreign territory. Tyre and Sidon are outside of the boundaries of the people of God. And I can imagine they're tired, it's stressful. It's really exhausting when people don't understand you and you feel like you have to continually explain yourself to people. I know, I've been there. Let's just get a rest. Let's recharge. Let's get out of things and have a minute to rest. And in that search for rest enters the Canaanite woman. She approaches Jesus, breaking boundaries. And she's not asking questions of religious purity or piety or what's clean and what's not clean like the Pharisees just did. She approaches Jesus and she is asking for mercy. She is asking for justice. She is asking for healing, not for herself, but for her daughter who is not present. Her daughter who has been inflicted by demon possession. Whatever you think about that, her daughter is inflicted by oppressive forces, and this mother is advocating for her child to Jesus. She is loud, she is disruptive to Jesus and his disciples who just want a place to rest. They just want to get away from the crowds for a few minutes, and here she comes. And she's shouting, right? She shouts at them. And then she makes her request 3 times, probably more than that, but we get 3 times that she's asking for this. Have mercy. Heal. I need justice. I want freedom for my daughter. I want her to have flourishing in her life, and she is not now. Make it right, Jesus. You're the one. I know. And finally, I can only imagine that Jesus has pretty much had it after explaining to her, like, well, actually, I didn't come for you guys. I came for the lost sheep of Israel. I didn't come for you. I came for the people of Israel, which is, by the way, what Jesus has said throughout the book of Matthew. This is not new information. He emphasizes it several other times before this chapter in Matthew. He even talks about, like, don't do like the Gentiles do. Don't do like the Gentiles do. So this isn't the first sort of derogatory encounter that we have with Jesus talking about Gentiles. We just have it face-to-face interaction now. So he's confronted with his prejudice. Because it's what he's been taught. That's the culture that he grew up in. Jews don't like foreigners. They do not like the Gentiles. The Gentiles are unclean. They're outside of the people of God. This is a people who grew up with stories that they are the ones blessed by God. It is the culture and the system that he has grown up with. And then finally, Jesus' real thoughts about it comes out, right? I didn't come for you. Why would I give the best of the best that's meant for my children to a dog sitting at the table or sitting underneath the table? And if this were me, I don't know that I would have even tried to continue the interaction with Jesus. As somebody who tends towards flight when I'm feeling threatened, I probably would have just walked away and said, forget it, and then complained to my husband when I got home. But that's not what this woman does. One woman's theologian that I was reading about, she says that this woman replies with some sass, right? I would say she claps back, right? In the face of derogatory speech, this woman says, even the dogs get the crumbs. That's fine that you called me a dog, but don't dogs also get food too? She refuses to take no for an answer because she knows that justice is on her side. She's not content to be ignored. And because she's convinced that her daughter deserves to be given a productive life, she will not leave Jesus alone. There's this beautiful humility about her in the clapback. She shows something that, I don't know that I would have shown. I would have walked away feeling like I was just slapped in the face, essentially called a bitch, and then walk away and saying, fine, this isn't for me. And when I say that this requires humility, I don't mean the kind of humility that I think some of us have been taught, where we talk about let's make ourselves small and less and unimportant and unvalued for the sake of others. When I talk about humility, it's something that has a secure sense of who we are, enough that we can be fully ourselves and think of others more and think of ourselves less, because we know who we are. Yeah, I don't need someone. You can call me a dog. That's fine. My daughter needs help. And we can stand in humility and still ask for mercy and ask for help and ask for what we need. It requires us to know ourselves deeply. Humility is something that's slow to offense, right? It thinks about others with grace. It expects the best in others rather than the worst, and it's not threatened by what others might say or think about us. We're able to love and think about others more and put them first without diminishing who we are. That's humility. And she exemplifies that. Her persistence and her humility are what stand out to me about this woman. But like a lot of people are going to ask, what does this mean about Jesus? Isn't Jesus the divine? How dare he say something derogatory? That's not the Jesus that I know. Jesus was perfect. Jesus didn't have anything to learn. Jesus was divine. And I want to reverse that, if you will allow me to. What this says about Jesus is that Jesus was also human. And it should be a comfort to us, because we tend to shy away from the Jesus' humanity to our detriment. We focus so much on the divinity of Jesus that it becomes impossible to actually follow the way of Christ. well, Jesus did that, but Jesus was perfect. I can't do that. So that puts Jesus in this like distant, separate place and creates in us like an excuse to not live into our full humanity. But what we see here is that Jesus had to learn, right? Jesus grew up being taught something about foreigners, was taught something about what it meant to be Gentile, was taught something about what it meant to be Jewish, right? Was taught something about what it meant to live separate from the people out there versus the people within his tradition. And he had to learn a different thing or unlearn the prejudice that was part of the system that he grew up in. He had to unlearn and relearn what it means to like truly love, what it means to embody true humanity. Jesus had to learn. And that should be a comfort to us because it makes following the way of Christ attainable and possible. Because just as Jesus had to journey into his holistic humanity, we're also on that journey. That is what the Christ-like way is. Learning to embody our full, whole humanity. Jesus was human. And what this woman does, I'm not sure she even realized it in the moment, but she's holding up a mirror to Jesus in this moment. Because she exemplifies the humility that we all expect from Jesus. We expect Jesus to be the one who absorbs the insults, right? Who takes the whipping for us, quite literally. And instead, she's the one who embodies the humility. She turns the insult into intention, right? She knows who she is, she knows what she needs, and she knows that Jesus holds the key. And she makes her request knowing that she needs other people to help her. She can't do it on her own. So she's holding up a mirror to Jesus and saying, this is the humility that you are to be embodying. And that challenges him, that challenges Jesus. But not just the humility piece. She calls him Son of David. She pulls out and reminds Jesus of his own lineage. Jesus has foreigners in his, like the blood of foreigners runs in his veins. Remember the beginning of Matthew? We have 3 foreigners who make up Jesus' lineage. And so when this Canaanite woman says, Son of David, it's a reminder. Here's another mirror. You're like me too. We're the same. The same blood runs in both of our veins. I'm a foreigner. So are you. So are you. So this woman, in her persistent humility, teaches Jesus about his own calling and about who he is and about like the expansive nature of God's kingdom. Jesus is learning and expanding his divine call in this interaction. And this is sort of like a moment in the text where Jesus begins to start speaking more kindly about and to Gentiles. It's a turning point for him so that we can get to the end of Matthew 26 and hear like, go out into all the world proclaiming the good news of Jesus. It's the beginning of a shift. So because of her persistence and belief in justice, she walks away with a healed daughter, and Jesus walks away with a healed understanding of his own identity. And in the healing, the divinity of Jesus is revealed. So this story is really a beautiful Christological image for us that shows both the humanity and the divinity of Jesus in one passage. I actually love it. It's quite beautiful. And I think there are some things that we can relate to in this passage that is meaningful for us today. There are just a handful of things, and I'm just going to throw them out there, take what's encouraging, leave what's not, and then we'll take communion. So the first observation, the first thing that I notice in this is that often, maybe always, It's those who are on the outside or on the margins who have a clearer understanding of God's kingdom. Because our privilege and our proximity to power clouds our vision of God. It's actually the privilege and the power that clouds our vision. It doesn't give us clarity, it confuses. There's more to hold on to. There's more to lose. So those who are on the outside, who know what it is to have nothing, who can see more clearly into the workings of the hierarchies that structure our world, we see and understand the upside-down nature, the delusional nature, if you will, of God's kingdom, where the last are first and the first are last, and none of it makes any sense. Those on the margins, those outsiders, or those we see as outsiders, are the ones who understand that the small acts of love and kindness are what really bend the needle towards justice. It's about restoration rather than retribution. And it makes absolutely no sense to the structures that control our world right now, especially because it doesn't seem like it's a threat. It doesn't make any sense. And yet it's the thing that bends the needle. The other thing that strikes me in this passage is the humility, again, like I talked about, of this woman and the sense of need, right? The Pharisees come in assuming they're self-sufficient. They need nothing from Jesus. They're only there to judge and criticize. But they don't need anything. They're self-sufficient within themselves. And when I think about the Pharisees, I think about a lot of the ways in which, like, the Big C church, ourselves included in that, don't always do a good job of collaborating with others. We want to be self-sufficient within our own little silos and our own buildings, doing our own work. And, like, if our name can't be on the outreach or the thing, then we don't want to be involved with it because, like, we need to be known and seen that we, like, have it together. Rather than seeing that, like, oh, we're all better together. We're stronger if we collaborate. We're stronger when we're able to do the work together. Because the thing about collaboration that I think is threatening to the church today is that we assume we have all the answers and they need us. But the reality is all of the theys that we think need us actually have so much to teach us. We've been, again, blinded by our privilege and our proximity to power, so much so that we think we have all the answers and we need to just put it onto other people. This is colonialism, right? And we can learn nothing from those who we're trying to, quote unquote, save, or those we're trying to help, or those who we are even, like, designed. It can come from a good place. We want everyone to flourish. We want everyone to find freedom. We want everybody to find shalom. But we're the only ones who know how to do it. And that's completely false. We need the voices of everybody in collaboration to bring mutual flourishing to all, because we miss truths and we miss factors that are barriers to flourishing. We need each other. And the Pharisees don't get that. The church of today doesn't get that. We're not entering into spaces with curiosity, with true curiosity and questions. We come in with questions assuming we already know the answer. The final piece that I see in this beautiful woman is her persistence to issues of justice. She knows that her daughter is not flourishing. She knows that her daughter deserves more. She knows that justice is not happening in the life of her family. It's very mama bear energy, and I love it, right? I'm not going to let my child suffer from this affliction, and I'm going to do everything in my power to fight it. I'm going to be, like, called a slur, but whatever. My daughter deserves justice. And in her interaction with Jesus, not only does she get the justice that she knows that she deserves, but her persistence wakes up Jesus more fully to his calling. And this is good news for us, because we can continually be woken up to our own blindness and ways that we are complicit in injustice. There's always the work of unlearning and relearning where we have been complicit, and ways that we can change for not only our own wholeness, but for the shalom of everybody around us. This is the work. This is it. It's the unlearning and relearning, and unlearning and relearning again. It's the waking up to new layers, where we thought we were whole, but we're not whole. Where we thought that we were bringing justice, but we weren't bringing justice. Where we thought that we were communities of mutual flourishing, but we've missed out on a member of our community that's not flourishing. This is the constant work. And we do it with dogged determination, to use the word in a better way, to work towards freedom and shalom, mutual flourishing for all, for everyone. That's the work. May it be so.